We're looking back. Panthers leadership spoke volumes prior to the team having success on the ice.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, August 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12. That is Jacob Winans. You could follow him on X at JakeW_8. Shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit FanDuel today, the app today, and start planning for your future bets now. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show where we are still in the dog days of the summer. Throughout the month of August and into the first few weeks of September, we're going to produce somewhere between 2 to 4 episodes per week. For today's show, we are going to discuss the Panthers' leadership on how it spoke volumes when it came to a certain player's Ironman streak at the time. We're going to discuss the NHL releasing the Panthers Quarter Century Mt. Rushmore and our thoughts on it. And the Team USA has announced their orientation camp that will be going on later in Michigan. But Jacob, welcome back to the show on another edition of Winans Wednesday. And let's get started with this first topic that we are going to be discussing today on the show. And I mean, we discussed so much over these last few years on just the leadership and the fact that this team loves to be around each other. You saw it with the re-signings of Ekblad, Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand, but I just look back at just the prior to them winning and what the core at the time, which the core was Barkov, Huberdeau, Ekblad, and how much it spoke volumes of what they learned from the guys like a Jaromir Jagr. And then when everything was going on with the COVID pandemic, the pause, the season starting late, there was one situation that was going on that we were very vocal at the time on this podcast and even in our group chat was the decision or the consideration of scratching Keith Yandle opening night of the 2021 season, which was on January 17th against the Chicago Blackhawks. At the time, 866 consecutive games played. He was going after that Ironman streak, which the Panthers did not end up scratching him. He played that full season into the playoffs. Panthers bottom out after that. He plays more than half the season with the Philadelphia Flyers prior to his Ironman streak ending, which now the streak is held by Phil Kessel, who just recently retired. But one thing that spoke volumes about that is just the leadership of the guys in the room standing up for their teammates. And on paper, and us being observers of this team, we looked at it as what's best for the team is Yandle not on the ice. But when you look back at this almost 5 years later, I hate to admit this, but the Panthers kind of did the right thing, standing up for a guy.
Yeah, I think the easy solution would have been to scratch him, and I'm not gonna, we discussed it then. We didn't feel like he was up to the level necessary for him to be on the ice, and looking back on it, I still feel that way. That he definitely wasn't at a point in his career where him playing was really helping the team.
Correct.
But that's just from the hockey standpoint. It's okay to separate the hockey from the culture of the team in the locker room and the team chemistry aspect, and that can be different.
Yes.
Every team has guys that maybe don't play a lot of games that the team absolutely loves and would love to see have success. And I think that's the situation the Panthers found themselves in at that time, and it was uncomfortable and it was weird, and there was a lot of public pressure. And then outside of the Panthers organization, Keith Yandle is a really well-liked guy around the league. There were a lot of people bashing the Panthers for even considering scratching him. And I understand the hockey decision that it would have made sense to put him in the press box back then, and I was on the side of that. But I do think you're right. It absolutely shine a light on a little bit of the culture that the Panthers had built within their room and within the players. And I think the players standing up for him and essentially saying in their stance, we're willing to ride or die with Keith Yandle in the lineup. Whatever he can give us, whatever he can't give us, we're willing to do what's necessary to win games with him in the lineup. Whether that means uh, having to cover more on defense, or forwards have to get back, or his partner has to block some shots, or put or lay down and be in a tough position sometimes. The Panthers, the players aren't stupid. They know what guys' strengths and weaknesses are, and everyone at that time knew Keith Yandle's weaknesses, and they took the stance that they were willing to live and die with that, and play through whatever Keith Yandle wasn't able to provide, uh, if it meant they got to keep their teammate in the lineup. And I think that spoke volumes, and it definitely offered a glimpse into the future of what the Panthers culture and team camaraderie was going to be like, because they really have become the tightest knit group in hockey. And I think that was an early sign of it when they stood up to coaching, to management, and made it clear, we're gonna go to war with this guy, whether you feel like he can help us win right now or not.
Yeah, and he had been on the team for more than 5 years at that point. He had the no move clause as well, so which ended up in the buyout as well. And Bill Zito's first season as the GM, Coach Q's second season, and I mean, you think about how the Yandle wasn't their guy, neither of the two in Coach Q and Bill Zito, and those two are responsible for being as non-biased as they can, as neutral as it can, knowing of what kind of results it could bring and what it couldn't, and like you said, ride or die with those guys. And I mean, some of the guys that were possibly going to be in the lineup that we were discussing were guys like a Riley Stillman into the lineup, a Brady Keeper who was on the taxi squad for the Panthers at the time, and also there's a little bit of an excitement going into the season into that season of guys who were making their debuts for the Panthers. Eetu Luostarinen. We didn't know who Gustav Forsling was. Anthony Duclair was coming off an all-star season in Ottawa. Patrick Hornquist, a Stanley Cup champion hero for the Pittsburgh Penguins in that series against Nashville. And then they were still trying to, at least we were hoping for that shift in this franchise. It hadn't come just yet. I mean, currently in 2025, I see the New Jersey Devils right now as what the Florida Panthers were in the late 2010s, early 2020s. So I'm kind of seeing that right now. I mean, Keith Yandle was 34 years old, and we talk about and funny enough, in that first game of the season, he scored a goal at the same time. Everybody was just laughing and just like, okay, everyone wanted him scratch, and then he scores in the first game. Also, funny enough, first star of the game in that opener was Eetu Luostarinen, a secondary assist and a goal, in that one as well. So crazy to think how that kind of a little chain reaction kind of happened there, but it all had that effect. Paul Maurice was still coaching the Winnipeg Jets at the time. He had not resigned yet, but I could only imagine what he was kind of thinking from afar, thinking, these guys really love their teammates and they are willing to stick up for one another.
Yeah, I think it definitely sent a message around the league, that was just, it was such a public story,
No
and
doubt.
the Panthers were not exactly a team accustomed to being the talk of hockey, but at that time they had become a little bit of a, hey, let's see what's going on down here in Sunrise, because a new GM, a blockbuster trade with Matheson for Hornquist, which also went very public because Hornquist was very publicly not happy about being asked to waive his no trade clause by Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And then ultimately ended up deciding to do it because he believed in Florida and the fact that they wanted him. There was a growing culture shift. The Panthers were, you bring in Hornquist, you bring in Radko Gudas. I believe they had brought in Marcus Nunavara from Columbus, so they were kind of reshaping a little bit of what they did. You mentioned Anthony Duclair. You mentioned, we didn't mention it, but a little known forward from the Tampa Bay Lightning had just signed as well, Carter Verhaeghe. So the Panthers were revamping the culture, bringing in some established veterans, but also some guys who were young, right in the beginning stages of their prime, and we're hoping for a better opportunity. So I think there were a lot of eyes on the Panthers, and let's see what's being built over there. Um, and I think when that happens, and then the whole Keith Yandle story comes out, I think from one angle it looked like, wow, this new regime here means business. They they don't care about what you've done in the past. They don't care about your Ironman streak. They mean business. They're about winning. I think it sent that message. But then the pushback from the players of, yes, we're ready to win, but we can win with this guy. We like him. We want him playing. We can do it with him. I think sent another message, and I think it was uh, anyone from the outside looking in could see it both ways. Like, this is a front office and a management team that's going to win at all costs. They don't care about your feelings. And this is also a group of players who are tight knit. They're close. They're going to do whatever they need to do to help their own, and they're going to stand up for each other. And I think if you're looking at that from the outside, you're thinking this could be really dangerous if management and players align on both of those things, and now you're win at all costs, but you're also the most tight knit group in the NHL. If those two can align on that, that could be a really dangerous group. And I think now we're seeing what the end result of that is. They definitely found that alignment in the past couple of years, and the results speak for themselves.
No doubt. And coming up next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, we are going to discuss the Panthers Quarter Century Mount Rushmore. What is the criteria that the NHL decided to go with, and who is also worthy of possibly being on the list? We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided last minute to head to a ball game with friends and family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. You get incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee, and it takes the worry out of buying. And with the stretch run coming in the MLB, and although neither of the Florida teams are likely going to be in the postseason, Game Time is the perfect place to get some of those deals. As with the demand's a little lower, so you get to save a good amount of money on your MLB tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment number 2 here on this Wednesday, August 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So before we discuss the quarter century team for the Florida Panthers, one of the coolest things I saw over the weekend was South Florida native and player for the Baltimore Orioles, Kobe Mayo, for Players Weekend. For Players Weekend in MLB, at one time they were making custom nicknames on jerseys, but that has changed. But custom cleats for Kobe Mayo was Florida Panthers theme. On one side, it was the Florida Panthers logo. On the other side was the Stanley Cup championship that Kobe Mayo displayed there. How cool is that, Jacob?
That was awesome. Yeah, I saw that on SportsCenter the other night, and I believe he hit a home run in them. So the Panthers definitely bringing luck to the MLB too. But I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, no doubt. And honestly, I'll tell you the truth, I had not heard of Kobe Mayo until that moment. So now he is an easy person to cheer for. So cheering for him most definitely. So the NHL have been releasing their quarter century Mount Rushmore for every team, and the Panthers quarter century team was announced just recently. So the names that were listed for the Panthers is Alexander Barkov, Aaron Ekblad, Roberto Luongo, and Jonathan Huberdeau. Those are the 4 names that the NHL decided to announce. So I was thinking here, kind of like what they're thinking of the criteria. It's impact plus longevity. If we take the longevity out, there's possibly some different names here on the list, because you're thinking about a few guys who had scored in the 50s, like a Sam Reinhart, in which now he's going into his 5th season with the Florida Panthers. Pavel Bure, who's scored twice, but he's very, very early on in the 2000s, so he's kind of right on that cutoff for the Panthers. And then you're thinking about other guys who might be in the longevity aspect of the Panthers, even though they haven't produced a crap ton of points, like a Stephen Weiss, who played 11 years with the Florida Panthers. Bob signing the biggest contract at the time in Florida Panthers history. And then obviously the culture shifter in that trade for Matthew Tkachuk, which I'm not going to take this segment to insult Jonathan Huberdeau, because think about it. At the time of the trade, he had the most games played. He had the most points in franchise history. So he had so many different records that he was chasing after. It was only passed by Barkov because of the trade then. So this is where I'm thinking kind of in the direction that the NHL went with when it comes to this quarter century team. So from 2000 to 2025, this is what they decided. I want to give you your thoughts here.
Yeah, so they actually picked the exact players that I would have picked. Those would definitely be my 4. Aaron Ekblad, without a doubt, most accomplished and best defenseman in the history of the franchise. There's no debating that. Alexander Barkov, by far the best player the Panthers have ever had, best player in franchise history. Only captain in Panthers history to lift the cup, so you can't argue with that. And then when it comes down, I feel like you have to have a goalie.
Yes.
So whether it's Bob or Lou, obviously Bob's got the 2 Stanley Cups, but I think Roberto Luongo easily, if he had a better team with him during his time with the Panthers, easily could have been a Stanley Cup champion goalie, and without a doubt a Hall of Famer. Only player with his jersey retired. You really can't argue with him being the guy. And the Panthers are fortunate where they've had 2 goalies who at times with the Panthers were the best goalie in the league. So not a knock on Bob. It's more Luongo kind of carried the franchise during those lean years when he was the best player on the ice most nights that he was playing for the Panthers. So he was a lock for me. Where it gets tricky is the Huberdeau one, and I think Matthew Tkachuk definitely has a case to be made for that spot. Sam Reinhart, especially the way he's closed out the 2 Stanley Cups. He's 5 goals in the 2 clinching games for the Panthers to win the Cups. I mean, he's definitely got a case to be made there, especially with his regular seasons that he's had. I don't think he's scored under 30 goals ever as a Panther. I'm pretty sure he's top 30 each year that he's been with the Panthers. Definitely a case to be made for him as well. But like you said, Jonathan Huberdeau, when he was traded, was the best offensive player, at least in the history of the Panthers, as far as the points. He led the franchise in assists. He had the games played record. He was well on pace to kind of lead the Panthers in all these categories. Barkov may have caught up. I mean, obviously Barkov's a couple years younger. All it would have taken really would be one injury, a long-term injury, maybe, to flip that and make that a different one too. But we definitely can't forget how good Jonathan Huberdeau was with the Panthers. He was an absolutely incredible player here, and he was at the time of the trade coming off of a season where he had something like 115 points on a President's Trophy winning team. He wasn't a bad player by any means, and he earned his spot on the Panthers Mount Rushmore. And a point I always like to bring up, and we've discussed this before, part of his value as a Panther was the fact that he was a big enough and important enough and talented enough player to bring in Matthew Tkachuk. I feel like a lot of times that gets overlooked, and it's, oh my God, the Panthers fleeced the Flames. That's not really the case. That was a gigantic risk for the Panthers to take. If you remember that season, Jonathan Huberdeau had more points than Matthew Tkachuk did.
Fourth in MVP voting.
Exactly. He was a top 5 finalist for MVP in the NHL that year. The Panthers had just won a President's Trophy. there were a lot of people who thought we were out of our minds when that trade was made. That people were pissed off and dragging Bill Zito, and it was seen as, wow, Calgary just got a ridiculous haul in this trade. So part of Jonathan Huberdeau's value to the Panthers, even now, is the fact that he was a big enough fish and was a great enough player for them to even bring in Matthew Tkachuk. And I think, and I don't think anyone can argue that the Panthers don't win these last two Stanley Cups without Tkachuk.
Mhm.
So in turn, that shines a light on Huberdeau, as he was good enough for us to trade him and bring back a player that helped us win these cups. So I don't think that should ever be overlooked. I think his value speaks volumes even now when you look at what trading him actually brought to the team.
And I know the ending wasn't so great for Huberdeau, and then there's that rumor about the supposed phone call that was between him and Bill Zito saying, I'll say the clean version of it, him saying screw you when it came to the trade. But when the dust settles and his career is ending, I'm not saying that his number will necessarily be retired, but again, you look at two of the top of the two of these Mount Rushmore guys, and Luongo not wanting to leave Florida even when they were in their dark ages, and even wanting to come back. Jonathan Huberdeau, they hadn't won a playoff. They won one playoff series in 26 years, and he still wanted to stay in South Florida. So this was happening even before the winning for this franchise. So I think that that's really speaks of impact of how much people do want to be here, and I think that is valid on why he is as far as this in this Mount Rushmore for the Florida Panthers. But I do think he will one day be in the Ring of Honor for the Panthers. I'm not ready to say jersey retirement, but I think he does belong up there when things settle and everyone in this era is no longer playing hockey for not only the Panthers but as far as Jonathan Huberdeau in his career now with the Calgary Flames, which he had almost 30 goals this year. So a nice bounce back, and I hope that the Flames, that they have a better season this year, especially because they have a star goalie in Dustin Wolf over there as well. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3. We're going to talk about the Team USA announcing their orientation camp roster, and there's one Panther who was invited to the orientation camp. What are their chances of making the Team USA for the Olympic Games come in February? We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and season hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling for your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So are you on the train of Josh Allen winning back-to-back MVPs? Will Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson be able to take that back from Josh Allen? Are you willing to put down any bets that the Dolphins could possibly, a long shot, win the AFC East over the Buffalo Bills? And will the Kansas City Chiefs find a way to avenge their Super Bowl loss last season? You could do those all on FanDuel. So visit the app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Segment 3 here on this Wednesday, August 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Armando Velez here with Jacob Winans here on another edition of Winans Wednesday. And I want to say congratulations to Team USA on winning the Hlinka Gretzky Cup, the first time Team USA has won the tournament since 2003. And this is usually a tournament where the Team USA mostly sends their players who are in the USHL. So not their players that are mostly for the NTDP, but still major congratulations, as Team Canada has mostly puts their players who are currently playing in the CHL. So that's a big tournament win for Team USA, which this gives us a good opportunity to talk about what was announced the other day for Team USA's orientation camp. And the Team USA announced it. If you see, when you look it up, that Matthew Tkachuk is not in there, he's not going to be part of the camp because he's hurt. But there was one Florida Panther who was on the roster for the team orientation camp. Does not mean that they're necessarily in it. So it's like necessary. It's what you could say a tryout for what's gonna be going on. So Seth Jones is part of that orientation camp for the Florida Panthers. We talked about how much his stock has gone up since the trade from Chicago to Florida. I don't know how much of a consideration he was for the Four Nations, even to begin with. But Jacob, I broke this down as far as the defense, as far as locks who are in, guys who made it last year, and of course guys who didn't make it. And I also put in a parentheses right, whether they're right-handed shots or left-handed shots. So the locks of the two of the guys who are in the first six are Charlie McAvoy and Quinn Hughes. Some of the guys who made it last year: Brock Faber, Zach Werenski, Adam Fox, Jacob Slavin, Noah Hannafin, and Jake Sanderson. Those are the guys who made it last year. And then there are guys who are going to be in the camp who didn't make it last year. So Ryan McDonough, Brady Shea, Seth Jones, as we mentioned, Brett Pesce, Jackson Lacombe, Neil Pionk, Alex Vlasic, and Luke Hughes. Those are some of the guys. A nice mix of veterans and a nice mix of young guys into the mix. So some of the guys who were on, one of the guys who were on the team who's on the younger side, Brock Faber and Jake Sanderson, and then some of the guys who are possibly on the bubble, like an Alex Vlasic, and a Luke Hughes are also guys. And then some guys who are just in their late 20s and really into their primes, like Seth Jones, Neil Pionk, Brady Shea, Brett Pesce are those. So I think that McDonough is possibly going to get maybe the John Carlson treatment for Team USA, an older veteran who displays a lot of leadership, but might be a little too slow for what the bigger sheet of Olympic ice is going to bring. And I also, one thing I'm worried about, one of the guys who are on the bubble here, like an Alex Vlasic, he's humongous, 6'6". Can he keep up with the speed of a team like Team Canada over there? But also, I think of the guys who were in it last year, as we mentioned, who could be possible replacements. I wasn't necessarily impressed with the guys like Noah Hannafin in last year's tournament. I was definitely impressed by Jacob Slavin and guys like a Zach Werenski in there. But then you have to think of what Mike Sullivan and company are going to look for as far as guys who could play even strength, power play, and penalty kill, which Seth Jones can do all three. But at the same time, there are guys on the team who will possibly quarterback a power play, like a Quinn Hughes is probably going to be the first choice on the first unit. Brock Faber's probably going to be one on the second unit, maybe, or Zach Werenski. So the fact that he's in this camp to begin with means he has a chance. But how much of a chance does he have? I think that it's going to come up to possibly him. Neil Pionk is one who's a vet. Like I said with Luke Hughes and Jackson Lacombe, I think those are going to be young guys who are going to get a chance, but might be cut. But at the same time, Seth Jones has been in two world championships in the last 5 years, and he captained one of them in 2023. Which, by the way, Nate Schmidt wore the A in that same year in the world championship. So I think he's going to be very close to being right on the cut line. So the fact that he's even here to begin with, it's really exciting.
Yeah, I think one factor that doesn't get talked about much is the fact that this tournament is a mid-season tournament. There are very likely to be a couple guys who look like locks or guarantees that may end up injured and not playing.
Yep.
We saw that last year in the Four Nations. It's the unfortunate part of where this tournament is placed. So with that considered, I think if anyone goes down, I would say Seth Jones is probably first in line for the next spot on that defense. But I think he's got a really good chance. I really do. I think that his versatility and the fact that he can run a power play and can run penalty kill and can eat up just a ton of 5-on-5 minutes, and then also being a right shot defenseman gives him a little bit of a leg up. I think he's got an opportunity just from that standpoint alone. You definitely have to look at the way he's played in high pressure situations. That's something that's always going to be considered. And he was fantastic in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Had a tremendous playoff. And then you look at his Game 7 performance against Toronto, best player on the ice. So you look at a guy who, how does he perform in a tournament situation or in high pressure situations? He absolutely stepped up to the plate, and I think that needs to be considered. Um, you can't teach size, and the fact that he's 6'4" and has tremendous reach and can really cover a lot of space, especially when it's a tournament on bigger ice or more open kind of more open rules. That the IHF game is sort of designed for a little bit more end to end, fast paced action. It's a little less physical, a little more skill based at times. I think having that kind of size on the blue line and that sort of reach can cover a lot of space. That's another thing that he has going for him. Um, he's a veteran. He's captained the Team USA before. He's played it in World Championships, which is another amount of experience that's important. I think Team USA wants to begin to send a message that guys who play in that tournament will be rewarded. That
Yes.
the U.S. team has traditionally not really cared that much about the World Championship tournament, where Canada tends to put a lot more stock into it. And I think the Team USA is trying to change that culture a little bit. Guys who play in that tournament, that experience matters and will be taken into consideration. So I really think Seth Jones has a great shot to make the team. And I'm not just saying that as a Panthers fan. I think if he were still playing in Chicago, maybe not, because you don't get that playoff experience. You don't get to see how he performs in high pressure situations. He's playing with partners that maybe aren't elevating his game, and he's not able to elevate their game as much. So he might not even get a camp invite if he's still in Chicago. But the way he played to end the year and the way he played in the playoffs, he's put himself on the map. And I would be a little bit surprised if he doesn't make the team. I think he's near the cut line, but I think he's on the right side of it.
Yeah, and 25 players on the roster for the Olympics as opposed to 4 nations. So chances are it's going to be 14 forwards, 8 defensemen, 3 goalies for how they're going. Each team is going to carry their roster. And I think of even if he doesn't make it initially, he will be probably the first guy called up there. And of the guys who didn't make it, 3 of them are three. There's the 3 right-handed shots of guys. Pesce is a right-handed shot. Neil Pionk is one, and also Brett Pesce is also going to get a great opportunity this year to play more penalty kill minutes because Jonathan Kovacevic, who's their big penalty killer, is going to also get elevated minutes in that role. Signed a big contract just last offseason. So is that going to really truly help his stock? But also that's going to also more wear and tear on the body with blocked shots, which we don't cheer for injuries, but he's going to get more shot blocks there. So that's a thing that could also elevate the stats on just their ability to prevent pucks from getting to the goaltenders and high quality, high danger opportunities there. But like you said, 6'4", the reach isn't something you can't teach. And I think it was Vincent Trocheck that mentioned that we need to get more guys for Team USA. It was either him or Adam Fox. Someone mentioned it about how they need to change it. And like you said, hopefully, because he's been there twice in the last 5 years, obviously you have to, for world championships, your season has to end early in order for you to go to begin with. So Seth Jones has definitely had that opportunity. It's just strange in the IIHF calendar how it mixes in with the NHL schedule and the playoffs and everything. So hopefully Seth Jones is in and that we could have multiple Florida Panthers there, as we are going to see a whole bunch of them in this tournament, like we saw with the 4 nations last year. 8 of them were in this tournament last year, and it's only going to be a lot higher now with Latvia being part of the mix. So with Uvis Balinskis likely going. So we have a lot of hockey to watch, as I've already looked at the schedule. Earliest games are at 6:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I believe the latest game starts at 3 o'clock Eastern. So yeah, although it's a few months from now, start making your plans. If you're in a corporate office, have a laptop open to watch the games. If you want to take some time off, start requesting your time off now for the Olympics if you want to really stay home and watch it. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Another successful Winans Wednesday here on the show. Tell everybody where they can find you online, my friend.
Yep, you can follow me on X at JakeW_8.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week.
Can't wait. Thanks.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.